Welcome to Wisen Up. Are you planning to move to Canada? If your answer is yes, then you're at the right spot. I'm your host, Ruju. In this podcast series, we will discover inspirational stories, valuable resources, and tips that will make your moving to Canada journey easier, faster, and better. Hello. Thanks for listening to Wisen Up. My co-host Ron and I are back with another inspiring moving to Canada journey of our guest speaker, Sam J. Thomas. Sam is a financial advisor. He works for one of the top 5 banks in Canada. Sam used to work with IBM before, and he used to run his business in Middle East. Then Sam decided to move to Canada with his family. One thing Ron and I admire about Sam is that he's always learning and he believes in continuous learning and applying. He has picked up a couple of courses from the University of Toronto. He has completed studies in York. He has also done online certification and he continues to do more certifications. So there are lots of tricks and tips that we will learn from Sam today through his journey. Sam is now an established banker and a financial advisor in Canada, but he did not have any banking experience before coming to Canada. So this conversation is really beneficial to those who don't have specific hard skills and are thinking of reinventing themselves or looking for changing a career or looking for a second career. Welcome, Sam. Thanks for joining our Wisen Up podcast today.
Sam, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Ruju. The pressure is on me. You have actually praised me so much that I'm like, okay, what do I speak?
No pressure at all. And I know you for so many years, and I know you're very, very good at handling pressure. But today it's all about just letting our listeners know how comfortable and easy it is to be in Canada and what are the options available for them. So let's just start from your journey right from the beginning. So you were working for IBM back in the day, right? Am I right?
Yeah. So earlier in my career, I think I'm speaking to many people from India. That's where I'm from. I don't know if we know about, or we can just go back in time and just look at our careers. Like I went into commerce back in 11th and 12th grade because the hottest girls were in commerce. And then
You don't say.
After 12th, I realized, man, what do I do next? There's a BCom. So I went in and joined BCom. And after that, what do I do? Everyone says MBA. So I went into MBA and I went into finance. And then after that, I went ahead and got my MCom as well. And then I was stuck. What do I do next? So I got into an auditing firm. And then I became an accountant there. And then I became a financial analyst with the BPO, with ESCO and IBM. And then I was continuing in my management accounting role. So why I said all of this is just to say that we usually don't have very many options there to kind of specialize or to look at ourselves inside and find out what are we really good at. So I became an accountant, a management accountant. Then I moved to a role for stock control. I learned about stock control, and then I went to Bahrain. I got married. I went to Bahrain. I got into business, and then the PR came through. I came back to India, and then came to Canada. So when I came to Canada, I was confused because I have done accounting, I've done sales, I've done IT, I've done all kinds of stuff. I'm a generalist.
This is amazing. This is why I love your story, because most of the time we see that people have, specialized in accounting or specialized in physiotherapy or specialized in IT or software development, especially from the Asian and South Asian countries. A lot of software developers in IT and what we commonly refer to as techies. And then we have people who are specialized in, as a doctor or a dentist, and then we have people like you and me who have worn so many different hats, and we have experiences in different roles. And how do somebody who has such a diverse background establish themselves when they come to Canada? Because we got to pick a particular role, and it's difficult to choose what to take and what to pursue.
Yes,
right.
Very true. Because I remember a couple of incidents when I came in first. I look at a lot of job vacancies, and the astonishing thing is when I was in Bahrain, the number of vacancies used to be less. So I used to always wonder, man, where are the jobs? But when I look at Canada, there's lots of jobs, but it's so difficult to get one job. So that was like something that I never understood. And then when I was applying for jobs, I used to apply for different kinds of roles. So I was always worried because when I used to edit my resume to highlight those skills what are relevant for that role, I had different versions of my resume. So when I have different versions of my resume, I used to have my desktop full of folders. And when someone used to call me, I used to freak out because I don't know which resume I sent to whom. And then I'd try and search for that folder, open up that resume and see and scan through it. Oh, okay, this is what I presented to them. And it is very funny that the first couple of months was really tough. I should say that it was not a cakewalk.
So Sam, you moved in with your wife Bibi, who is a physiotherapist, and your older son. Is that right?
Yes. So we moved together in 2014, in April of 2014. And we moved to Toronto. And that's the other thing that most people face when they come in here is if you have a child, you're looking at your spouse and going, so who's going to really look for a job? You or me? Who's going to be babysitting? That's another practical challenge that you face, and you have to overcome that to see who has the most, the fastest route to get a job.
Yes. Yeah, that's an important point, because in physiotherapy, you have a couple of levels of exams and practical and theory exams that you need to cover to get your certification to be able to officially practice physiotherapy. And since that would take a couple of years, for you, it was faster and easier to get into a job right away versus someone who specialized in, say, dentistry or physiotherapy. So that's an important point that you just brought up. And now, I mean, as a banker, you meet a lot of new immigrants and you hear their story and you see what they're experiencing. And there's a lot of common experiences that we hear from people who are coming in after us. And when you meet them, what are the common mistakes that you see that's happening with new immigrants when they come in? And what are the things that they could avoid when they're coming in?
So it's not a mistake. I mean, it's just the portrayal of Canada across the world. Before I came in, what did I see? I saw a white guy standing with a Canadian flag on a snow on a snow mountain. And when I came in here, it's all desis, and there's no snow, hardly any snow. It's only 2 times in the year it snows mostly. And then what you find is totally different from what the image was in your mind before you came to Canada. And then once you land, the reality of the job search hits you. You initially, many of us come in and say, you know what, I'm ready to hustle, I'm ready to do any kind of job, anything that's required. So what happens is that most people who come in are in their 30s or 40s, and they have already established themselves outside of Canada. And when we come in here, we don't get the same level of jobs that we had experienced earlier in our life. So that's a challenge. The second challenge is, of course, we come from a society which is very social. We come from a society where we have friends, your relatives, your cousins, people around you, where people check up on you. At least they pick up calls, or you can randomly go to meet them, or there's a culture of social community that is there in India.
Right.
Whereas when you come to Canada, it is totally different. I think the social aspect of it is different. The third thing I can think is the aspect of, I would say, if people are married, I think the stress that comes with marriage during the initial phase is high, because you might probably have a couple of months that both of you might not have a job, and your bank balance is running low. And then if you're not strong enough together, you seem to point fingers at the other person, and then that keeps aggravating, and family problems start happening. So there are so many things that go on, and so these are some of the things that I've seen. I'm not painting a bad picture. What I'm doing is I'm just helping people to get an understanding of what we need to be prepared for before we land in Canada.
And you have really gone out there and basically pulled out the curtain and showing the real challenges that people face if they don't have a job that they have waiting for them, or they don't have a strategy on what field that they want to specialize in. And also an important point that you brought about in terms of community. I just saw a YouTube channel, I think a couple of weeks ago, about this new family that moved in from Delhi to Toronto. And when Diwali came in, they felt really lonely and depressed, because Diwali is celebrated in a grand manner in Delhi and Bombay and parts of India. And they missed their family so much that they didn't have many friends in Canada, and they missed their community. And so there, and that's one of the reasons why they decided to start this YouTube channel, so that the next Diwali they actually hosted a Diwali party, and they invited all the new immigrants that they're connected with online, and they had about 60 people show up, and it was a lot better than the previous time. And so in Asian cultures, especially in India, and say we have this huge culture of celebration with family and friends, and even with strangers. When it comes to Holi and Diwali or Christmas or Eid or New Year, we invite our neighbors over, and that's because we have a lot of help with the family, extended family, parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, to get the day-to-day chores, work completed. And we also have a lot of help at home. But when you go to a country like the US or UK or Australia or Canada, you're driving your own cars, you are doing your own laundry, you're taking care of your kids, you don't have anybody to help you unless you're spending another extra $1,500 per month to hire someone to take care of your children. Lifestyle is definitely different, and it's important that people understand that, do their research, and be able to prepare for that and plan for that so that they're equipped. Because there are a lot of families who come in and then very soon they bring in their parents or their in-laws to help with raising the children. Canada has very friendly laws to help bring your parents and in-laws to help in these 10-year visas for that. And also, especially when winter rolls over and the temperature becomes really cold, we are aware of vitamin D levels being low. That affects our moods, affects our motivation. And if we tend to stay indoors and don't have a community, it becomes hard to move forward as human beings. We love interact with other people. And that's one of the main reasons why we even decided to start this podcast, is to help people understand and be prepared for it so that you're ready for whatever might come your way. And so, and that's why I think you also started a community. You've started a church where people can get together. Lots of new immigrants can come together and meet in the church, right? No matter where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And they don't even necessarily have to be Christian to come to the church. Is that true, Sam?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And so right now, in terms of your career, how is it going with respect to the bank? How is it going for your wife as she started getting the certifications? And how is it for the children? Are the children enjoying school? How are they finding it?
Yeah, I mean, things have changed. I should say, like I mentioned earlier, we had our struggles, but I should say, thank God that, I got a job thanks to you. I should add that in as well. You introduced me to a manager in the bank, and then I was able to crack the first interview before that, and then the second interview, and then the third interview, and I made it in the bank. The first time I got in there, I was quite nervous. I didn't even know what to do, but over a period of time, you learn. And one of the things that I learned about myself after getting into the role was that I am a good salesman. I didn't know that back in India. I was an accountant who used to sit behind a desk and work on Excel sheets. So, so I came to realize that skill about myself in this role. And at the same time, because I'm an accountant, so what has happened is I was able to give really good advice to clients because I calculate interest rates. I have different calculators. I do different things that normal advisors don't do.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned is whatever experience that we had in the past will definitely benefit us to some extent, and that will make us unique to a really good extent. So I just want to put that encouragement out there to anyone who thinks that, oh, my career is a waste, I did that, but it's definitely going to help you in your role here. And I think after that, my wife went ahead and did her certifications and her licensing and all that. It took about 4.5, 5 years. At the same time, I was just rowing the boat to speak just to say what I was doing. And then along with that, I did a couple of my certifications. I'm still doing certifications. I'm always meeting people, networking with people outside to understand different jobs, what are the roles, what is it that I could do parallelly with, working in the bank, what are the skills that I can develop. So those are some things that I've been doing. My wife is now working as a licensed physiotherapist. Thank God once again. My kids are now Canadians pretty much. I sometimes have to remind them that they're Indian. So I think, yeah, I mean, yeah, we're blessed. I would say that there's nothing else I can say. I mean, there's um, nothing that I would say that I can claim that I did wisely, that I am here today.
I just saw an interview yesterday of a lady from the US. She actually moved from the Middle East. She's Indian. Her last name is Desai. She took her PhD from the US. So, and she spent 18 years in the US and still couldn't get her green card. And her husband also is Indian, and they moved to Waterloo under the program with Communitech, which is a startup incubator and a tech in the Waterloo region. And she was saying how excited and happy she is that she made the move because she got her PR within a year, something that took her 18 years and still did not get her green card in the US. And in spite of her being a highly skilled PhD professor in a university in Massachusetts, in spite of that, it was a lot harder. And so, yeah, there's a lot of dynamics and changes happening in the environment too, in the markets too. And in terms of investments, Ruju, you had a question in terms of investments, right?
Yes, I did. So, Sam, I just wanted to ask you, what is the one advice that you would like to give it to our listeners who are not really good at saving money, just like me? I'm also not good at saving money. So, what is the one advice you would like to
I
give
think
us?
the most simplest, have a budget. If you have a budget calculator or a budget sheet with you, most of the banks now have the app where you can look at your credit card and go, okay, I spend maybe $200 on transport. I spend like $300 on food outside. So you can look at the budget sheet and see, oh, where did I spend more money this month?
Absolutely. I think now that you said it, I'm just going back in my mind. I'm like, year ago when I tried budgeting, or 2 years ago every time when I tried budgeting, I was able to save a lot of money, right? And once I stopped doing that, I'm going back to like spending so much money and so on. Again, that's just my Indian habit that keeps coming to me.
Yeah.
But I will definitely keep this in mind. And listeners, please, listen to his advice. That's amazing advice. Make sure to budget, and that would help us a lot in the long run. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Another question I would have is in terms of buying or investing in a house, what is your expert advice on Prince who come into the country and want to invest in a house? Is that a good idea or not?
It's a great idea. In terms of buying a house, definitely I would say eventually you will have to reach there.
But from an income level, right? Because you brought up the point of income.
Yeah.
What is the average household income that you need to buy a house, say in the suburbs? Let's leave Toronto out, obviously. So let's look at, say, 1 hour east or 1 hour west of Toronto. And if you were to buy a house, what is the income? Is that do you need about 120,000 as a family income to be able to buy a house?
It depends on the type of house again. Like if you're going for a condo now, it is anywhere from 500 to 600. Townhouse,
600,000 to buy the house, right? To buy the condo.
Buy a
Yeah.
condo.
So for that, how much income do I need? Annual income do I need to be eligible for that?
About $100,000.
So if me and my wife were making $100,000,
Yeah.
I would be able to buy a condo. Is that right?
Yeah,
And so-
yeah, I would say that.
So if my wife is making about, say, 50,000, I'm making about 50,000, so we are about 100,000.
Yes.
We should be able to get a condo is a condo in Toronto? Is the 500,000 in Toronto or Mississauga?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say there is no hard and fast rule or in terms of numbers, but I would use the multiplier of 4.85 to 5 times your income.
Right.
Uh,
A ballpark calculation to say how much income do I need.
Yeah. And now the reason why real estate is hot here is because immigration is high, and and people are concentrated more in GTA. So definitely, based on economics, when the population increases, there is a demand for housing. So there's no way.
So Sam, the 500,000 that you talked about, I just wanted to clarify that. That was in Toronto. Is that the price right now in downtown Toronto, or is it outside of
now
Toronto?
the condo prices have corrected a bit due to COVID. So even then the condo condo, one bedroom, like let's say 500, 600 square feet. By March in downtown Toronto core, I would imagine would be like 500, 550, 600.
That's awesome. And what about Mississauga? What about Waterloo? What about Hamilton?
Definitely, again, same price. The prices in Mississauga have been corrected because immigrants are keeping on. Like we as immigrants,
the demand is still high.
Demand is still high. Yes.
Yeah.
And right now, the housing market in anywhere from Ottawa all the way to Sarnia, that's the border of Michigan, everywhere is hot because people are just buying homes, refinancing, buying other homes, 2 or 3 homes. Maybe they're giving it on rentals. Plus, immigrants like myself or you or anyone who's coming in who's saving a down payment is buying a house. So there's a lot of demand.
And so as you know, we're coming towards the end of the podcast, and so as advice for future immigrants or people who are considering to come into Canada, what would your input be to them? Would you say yes, come, or would you say no, or would you? What would your advice be for? So let's start with the ones that have technology, domain expertise. One of them or 2 of them have that, and so they're coming into Canada. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I would tell them come directly to Toronto, save or get an apartment because most of the startups are in Toronto. Some of them are there in Waterloo, but not as much as how it is in Toronto. And the other benefit is you don't have to spend on your car or vehicle. There is good public transport. So if you get an apartment somewhere in Toronto and if you start putting in your resume for roles, you would be, especially in the tech space, you would be able to get a role.
Yeah, that's good. That's a very valuable input that you gave. And okay, what about the family that is not from the tech side? And what would your input be for that?
My input would be, first, I tell this to most people who are contacting me on Facebook who's saying that they are already through with their paperwork. I don't have, to be honest with you, there's no honest timeline. There are cases where people can get a job within 1 week. There are people who haven't got a job for the last 3 years. So we could be anywhere in that spectrum. But I'm a person who likes to prepare for the worst case scenario. So I let them know that, are you ready to hustle for the first 5 to 8 years and start from scratch? If you're ready, then this is the place. Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's really good advice. I remember a couple that were dentists that wanted to stop their very successful multi-million-dollar practice that they had in India and wanted to go to Canada. And I said, in my opinion, I would say that that's not a good idea, because after establishing yourself after 10, 15 years, will you be able to write the dentistry exams as if you just passed out from dentistry? Because you have to remember everything that you studied in 5 years and write it in one single exam. And they decided otherwise, and I also advised them to kind of phase their moving in, let one person go in and then come and then try it out and come back. And they tried it and they were not able to pass the exam. And so your advice is actually right. They have to be prepared for the hustle and be able to do whatever it takes to achieve their goal. And if they have that mindset, if they have that growth mindset, they definitely will be successful in Canada. So as a final piece of input, words of wisdom for the listeners, Sam, you've gone through 6-7 years of Canada, and then definitely going to be there for another 15-20 years, and you're making your investments, and now both of you are making more amount of money that you were making when you started off 6-7 years ago. And God has blessed you with beautiful children. You moved into a house. What's your final giveaway, your final blessing for the people?
I think is, one of the things that happened to me earlier when I moved to Bahrain and I moved here is that earlier on we talked about a little bit of suffering and things like that come because of a change of place. It also teaches you to be humble. So I think that even if you own whatever, if you have millions in your bank account, if you have 3 or 4 cars, the mentality, our Indian mentality of me showing off to people and competing with them has to die. And I think that simple living is sometimes the best thing, because I don't want to go very philosophical, but I want to just say, during our last moments of our life, the only things that will stay with us is memories. the money is useless.
Right.
So I would say whatever you're going through, if you're a newcomer to Canada, even if you take a walk outside, close your eyes, breathe in the fresh air, and thank God.
So be grateful. Is what you're saying. Be grateful for what you have and be humble and hustle hard. Right. That's exactly what SAM stands for. Be grateful and be humble and hustle hard. And I thank you, Sam. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing all your inputs and being absolutely honest and being brutally vulnerable in sharing the experience that you went through in the last 7 years. And we wish you all the best. And maybe in a couple of years, we will have you again on our podcast. Thank you so much, Sam.
Yes, thank you so much, Sam. You're really candid and it really helped us and our listeners to move forward in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudu. Thank you, Ron.
I hope you found this podcast useful. Why don't you tell us any specific questions you have about immigration in the comment section below? If you are an immigrant and would like to share your story with us, please email us at wisenoughpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for tuning in, listeners. I'm your host, Ruju, and this is the Wise Enough Podcast series.